Today on the podcast, I want us to look at why design skills are not enough to grow your business. Or rather, design skills alone are not enough to grow your business. And the reason why we're looking at that today is because it's the opinion of Elizabeth David. And for those of you who've been listening to the podcast since I got a brand new logo, she is the head honcho. She's the chief behind Goshen Media. They're the ones who designed the new podcast art, the new LinkedIn banner, for those of you who follow me on LinkedIn, the new YouTube banner and all that. So they're the ones who are responsible for all the good work that you guys can see right now on the podcast. You know, everything is looking nice, everything is looking clean, everything is looking polished, everything is looking refreshed. So Elizabeth is the one who is responsible for that. And I'm going to run through one of her LinkedIn posts where she spoke about us working together. And then we're going to tease out why design skills are not enough to build a profitable business. Or rather, design skills alone are not enough to build a profitable business. So welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Tavishima Ayede. If you'd love to connect with me, then call, send a text message or a WhatsApp message on 080-6466-2140. And if you love these sorts of things, how do you grow your business? Sales, marketing, branding, all these sorts of things. You want different perspectives that you're not hearing from other Nigerian podcasts. Then this podcast is your jam. So subscribe on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, or any player of your choice. And that's it. So let's go straight into it. So Elizabeth David today, she put up a post saying that she started off as a designer, jumping from one design course to another, going from one mentorship to another, collecting different kinds of fonts, collecting mock-ups, collecting different kinds of materials, but that eventually she realized that design skills were not enough to build a profitable business. Now let me repeat, these are Elizabeth's words. She started off, buy one course, go to another course, go to another course, have one mentor, go to another mentor, collect fonts, collect mock-ups, collect materials. But eventually, she realized that design skills alone were not enough. Now, for those of you who have been listening to my podcast from the get-go, you will know that it kind of mirrors my own journey, into where we are today. So, some experience in civil service, some experience in legal, some experience as a wedding photographer, then also in the export business with my brother. And eventually, especially in the photo and video space, you go from camera to camera, from lens to lens, from tutorial to tutorial, from course to course, technique. But then eventually, you have to wake up one day and realize that, it's not by technique alone. It's not by technique alone. There's something else that is missing. So Elizabeth said she realized that she needed to understand the business side, especially when it relates to sales and marketing. And that is precisely the reason why I started this podcast. Because back then, as a wedding photographer, I realized that my brethren were missing the way. It was not about buying camera. It's not about buying lens. People will save up. You go to, what's the school called again? There's in New York, I think it's in New York, like New York Academy of Art or something, that has a photography department. Like boys will save up, or go for, there was this wedding expo that used to happen, is it in Los Angeles or something? I can't remember. Travel. And then you come back and you just expect that somehow, automatically, your career as a photographer will just blow. No. So while Elizabeth and the people in the branding department were collecting fonts and doing courses, we photo people and video people were buying camera, watching YouTube videos, learning technique. That is not what builds a business at the end of the day. It would be nice if that's how we used to work. And some people say that there was a time when it was like that in Nigeria. First of all, I disagree. But the thing is, even if that was the case, it was probably a matter of, demand and supply. So like at some point, there probably weren't too many correct photographers in Nigeria or correct brand design people. So yeah, maybe it was a matter of demand and supply. So once you're the best, your reputation will just spread. But now that's not the case. There has to be something else. You need to understand sales. You need to understand marketing. It's not just about being the best. In fact, nowadays, with the level of information that is out there, being good, like good, is just entry. It's just jam 101. It's just entry stakes. With the level of information that is out there in the world right now concerning photography and video and branding, if you're entering the game and your scale is not tight, then nothing for you. So nowadays, being tight is just the price of admission. Being good is the price of admission. From Elizabeth's point of view now, knowing your craft as a brand and design person, that is just entry stakes. It just means you're now staying on the line. You're ready to race. But she said it. She realized that design skills alone were not enough to build a profitable business. If you're a baby lawyer, like I was a couple of years ago, knowledge of the law alone is not enough to build a successful legal practice. If you're an architect, you just graduated UniJoss, you finished your master's, that you graduated first class in your class is not enough to build a profitable business. Pick whatever endeavor it is. You go to Harvard, you go and study MSc Finance, you come back, you want to set up your consulting outfit. The fact that you went to Harvard or that you graduated first class is not enough to build a successful consultancy practice. So just like Elizabeth learned, and just like I learned, that we need to know sales and marketing, it's the same way. You too, you're supposed to wake up, especially if you're resting on the fact that you're smart or resting on the fact that you got skills. No, that's not enough. It's not enough. Sorry, excuse me. My voice is a little tired today. This is a late night recording, and I had a couple of conversations during the day. So that was how Elizabeth crossed my path. She was looking for good stuff on the internet. And that's how she found me. That's how she found the podcast. And that's how our relationship began. Oh, business relationship, by the way. I'm happily married. So that's how it began. She found the podcast. And then she started listening. Excuse me. Or rather, at first, she found the podcast. But then the podcast art looked like crap. So she decided to fashi. But eventually, they said, let her listen. And when she listened, she was surprised to see that what she was hearing, and then the designs that were there, was not matching. That the value she was getting from the podcast was really good, but that the podcast art was crap. Which is why eventually, after listening to a couple of episodes, she reached out. And then, the collaboration began. And now I have brand new stuff. Brand new podcast art. New logo, new everything. To reflect the packaging of what we have over here. So yes, design skills, really, really important. But anyway, so yeah, that's how Elizabeth discovered me. She said that my podcast bridged that gap. The things that she needed to know as a brand designer, the non-technical skills. Because, as a brand designer, you're supposed to know colors, design themes, what else? Different stuff. But then there's some non-technical things that you need to learn. And she said she was getting that from the podcast. I bridged the gap. She also said that on my podcast, right here, this podcast you're listening to, that I was good at breaking down complex concepts into simple terms so that a designer like her can understand and apply to the business. And you know what, to be honest, sometimes I wonder if maybe I'm not oversimplifying things. Once in a while I run into someone who says, and that definition you gave, a bit limiting. Yeah, sometimes I do wonder. If somebody discovers the podcast and then, they hear the way I'm talking about stuff, perhaps they might think I'm being too light or being too frivolous, or I'm not preaching this gospel of sales and marketing with the seriousness that it deserves. But then when I come across comments like this, from Elizabeth and those of you who reach out, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm on the right track. So the podcast might not be sounding academically, gym. But the fact that people are listening and it's making sense and they can apply, yeah, no problem, I'm on the right track. So yeah, that's what she said. Now for her, I bridged the gap. So recently, like I told you guys, her agency and I, Goshen Media, and me, we got to collaborate on rebranding this podcast. Building a nice visual identity. And for her, the idea she came up with was money as movement or knowledge in motion. That is kind of what informed the design that they made for the brand. To be honest, I'm not knowledgeable when it comes to these sorts of things. So to be frank, we had the conversation where she asked me the questions. I told her my expectations. And my wife and my brother, they are much more, how will I put it, sophisticated when it comes to these things. So mine was, okay, no problem. So long as I like the design, I check with wifey. Wifey is good. Check with my brother. Brother is good. Then we're good to go. But that was the idea that she had. Money as movement. Knowledge in motion. And I agree. Money as movement. Knowledge in motion. In fact, with the podcast, that's what I hope to achieve. That I put out knowledge. And whether you pay me or you don't pay me, you take this knowledge and you run with it. Put this knowledge in motion. Apply. So with the design that she came up with for the podcast, she was trying to reflect how insights move, how they flow from conversation to application. As in, we're having conversation, I'm just talking, I'm trying to drop some insights, and then you guys take it, and then you apply it. That knowledge will now, how will I say it now? Will now give you business momentum. You listen, you apply one or two things, then your business begins to pick up, begins to roll, small. Please, by the way, on this podcast, I do not promise 10x growth. I don't promise, triple your profits, 10x. I mean, you will triple your profits eventually. And you will 10x your profits eventually. But on the podcast, I'm hoping to inspire some simple behavioral change. That you just change how you do one or two things, or adopt one or two best practices. You make small growth, and then the big changes come over time. So can you triple your business? Definitely. But I don't promise that kind of growth here overnight. So behavior change first. We change the way that we do things. Actually start applying one or two things. Then that knowledge is what is now going to give your business momentum. Sales and marketing principles. Is going to give you forward motion in your business. So that was what she was trying to capture in the design, basically. Logo, the color palette, trying to capture some dynamic energy. Because in her own opinion, that's the value that she gets from the podcast. And from listening to the podcast, it keeps you moving, keeps you learning, keeps you growing. That's what she was trying to embody, trying to capture with the designs. Now, like I said, I'm not really savvy when it comes to these sorts of things. But to be honest, I like it. I like the logo. I like the look. I like the feel. I like it. And a bunch of you have also checked it out. In fact, there's some people who already started sending me messages. Boy, how far now? I'm noticing a new look. So it was well received. So, just in case you haven't noticed that there's been a change, look into your podcast player and see. Look at the new one. Let me know what you think. I like it. And I hope you guys like it too. So, anyway, it was a fun collaboration. Glad that I've met and worked and interacted with Elizabeth. And by the way, this is what I mean when I say when people reach out to me, like, I'm doing this for a business. And then some of you, when you reach out, it's only to take. So it's nice when people reach out and they're trying to give something for a change. It's really, really nice. So I'm glad that Elizabeth and I, finally spoke, finally hooked up, finally collaborated on this. And for those of you who listen to the podcast and who wish me well, like Elizabeth did, she thinks she has skills that can help me to move my ministry forward, and she reaches out. I really appreciate that. For those of you who also reach out in one or two ways to try and see how you can support the podcast, I really, really appreciate it. But if you're a creative listening to this, whether you're like Elizabeth, coming from the branding side, or whether you're like me, coming from the photo side, or whether you're like my brother, coming from the video side, or whichever side you're coming from, you need to understand. You need to understand that for your business to grow, you need to understand the business side better, not the technical side. In fact, I think, was it MI? I can't remember. There was one video where somebody was talking. I can't remember if it was MI or maybe it was, what's this guy? This guy with the big head. Banky W. Yeah, Banky W. I can't remember who it was, but one of them was talking to somebody and the person said, look, he said the thing is called show business. It's not just the show. It's also the business. That's why it's called show business. Basically, what the person was trying to say, whether it was MI or whether it was Banky W or whoever, the person was trying to say that, look, there's two things. There's talent that is involved. Then there's the business that is involved. So you learn the two. So if it was MI that was saying it, then what that means is you learn your flows as a rap artist. You learn your art. But then there's the business side as well. And that is why MI them, Chocolate City, grew to be a fairly successful powerhouse in the music industry in Nigeria. Because they knew it was not just about the skills. It's not just about how well do you rap. There's also a business side as well. Or take this guy, what's his name? Mavin, what's his name? Don Jazzy, Don Jazzy. It's not just about the art. There's a business side that goes into it. And that's the reason why Mavin is a powerhouse in the industry today. Now, if it was Banky W that said it still follows. Because, Banky W is not just the singing. He also does the acting thing as well. So it's not just you learn how to sing, you learn how to act. There's also a business side that goes with it as well. So if you're a creative, you've been listening to this podcast, or this is your first time discovering the podcast, just know you need to understand the business side better. Now, if you want to continue on this journey, I would be honored to help you stay on this path and walk this journey with you as you subscribe and as you listen every day or every other day or every week. I'll be honored to help you walk this path. But I've said it time and time again. It doesn't have to be me. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. For some people, I'm too blunt, or for some people, I'm too unserious, or for some people, I'm too, whatever. Or that my podcast, take too long. So it doesn't have to be me. But please, find something. Some podcast, some YouTube channel, some book, some community, something. And start learning how to understand the business side better. So that in 10, 15, 20 years, when you see people like me and Elizabeth in front and we're making progress, you won't start beefing. Because that's one thing we creatives do very well. Photographers who say, this guy is a scam. His photos are not nice. It's just packaging or it's just networking. There's one photographer in Abuja who graduated from Igbinedion. Yeah, he finished from Igbinedion. I don't want to call his name, but for those of you who are in photography, you will know. He's a big boy in the photography space in Nigeria. Not just Abuja, but Nigeria. And I hear people talking crap behind his back. They say, the guy doesn't have skill. That is Igbinedion connection. That's what he's using to hammer. Too much beef. Why are you beefing? So you're a better photographer than him. You think you're a better photographer than him? Okay. That's in your own pocket. The reason why he's blowing, and the guy has been blowing for 2 decades now, and you're not blowing, is because he's good at sales and marketing. That's why. So creatives, let's stop this beef. There's a business side to it. Learn the business. And you should be okay. So that's it. And that's all for today. Have a look at the new logo. I hope you guys like it. And if you're looking for a good designer to help you out on these sorts of things, I would recommend Elizabeth David and her team at Goshen Media. Anytime, any day. Especially since they conduct business in ways that I already recommend. Because when we're about to do the brand design, and she said we'd have to book a meeting so that we can discuss expectations, blah, blah, blah. Once she said that, I said, I am dealing with a professional now. Because too many design people say, we'll design logo, we'll design this. They don't ask you any question. They just come back and they present 5 designs and say, pick the one you like. So, yeah. I recommend Elizabeth anytime, any day. So again, it's Goshen Media. Goshen, like Redeem Camp, Goshen. Check them out on Instagram. You need her contact details, just let me know. And I will be sure to pass you on through to her or any of the rest of our colleagues. So, thank you very much for listening. Remember, if you'd love to connect, you have any question, any query, any complaint, 1 or 2 things are not clear, you disagree with me on anything, reach out. That's the reason why I give my phone number at the beginning and at the end of every episode. Again, the phone number is 080-6466-2140. You can call, you can send an SMS, you can send a WhatsApp message. It's all good. But if you're going to call, please don't call me at night. There's one idiot that called me at 1 a.m. I said, now wow, some people don't have sense. Please, take dressing. We're Nigerians. And in this part of the world is somehow total stranger. Just be calling at 1 a.m. Please, take dressing. So that's it. Thanks for listening. I will catch you at some other time. And I know that this particular episode was not sales related, but don't worry. The next one, I'll make sure we're doing something hardcore sales. So I'll catch you next time.